Hello, everybody. Welcome to this Fence webinar on Approved Document F. My name is Dave Meacham. I'm the Head of Inspection and Assessment at Fencer and the GGF. With me today, hopefully I'll have Lee Galley, our Assessor Manager. He will be in the background answering any Q&As that you've got on the Q&A system, if you could open that up. We'll try and answer most questions that you have in that forum. Where there are duplicates, you'll probably just only answer one version. There's only so many times you can write out. You need to put a bit of trickle vents in your windows. There's a large section of FAQs. These will probably clear up most queries. So the way we're going to run through it is I'm going to do a little bit about the actual document and then about trickle vents, and then go through a lot of the questions that we've been answered in the past. Okay. If I can't, I can't answer any specific cases on this forum, so about particular houses. And if there are any questions I can't answer, then I'll try and find an answer later, and or we'll make contact with you or publish it on our website. Firstly, a little bit about us. There are 8 full-time inspectors. There are 8 part-time inspectors. We have 3 full-time and 2 part-time administrators that do all the booking work and coordinating and getting all the results in and moving them across. I still have to inspect myself. I cover Devon and Cornwall. Any of you that are joined us from that region, you've probably met me over the years. I've been down there for quite some time. Between us, there are over 500 years in the industry between all the inspectors. We've spent a lot of time in and around windows and doors. So we don't know everything, but we usually know a man who does. So to get us started, on the 15th of December 2021, the approved documents F, L and O were published by the government. These all come into force on the 15th of June 2022. Okay, but this presentation is only going to cover approved document F around the trickle vent area. We're not going to go any further than that. It's a meaty enough subject on its own. So we're not going to look at L and we're not going to look at O. O is for new build anyway, and L will be covered at some other point soon. Okay, so I want to go through some myths. I venture onto the forums every so often, and yeah, it can be a bit of a bear pit, some of those places. But there are some interesting stuff flows around, and I really want to put them to bed. So one I saw the other day was Fencer employing 1,000 extra staff to carry out inspections. I wish. I said I've got 8 full-time and 8 part-time inspectors for the whole of England and Wales. We have 6,000 companies, over 6,000 companies, and over 500,000 installations per year. Okay, so this has been the number of inspectors I've had for years, give or take 1 or 2 coming and going. So that's not changing. Fencer are carrying out 50% more inspections to enforce this. We're really not. The quota allocated at the beginning of the year based on completed installations the previous year, that's not changing. Still the same way. So we're not doing any more inspections just because trickle vent regulation has changed. Not at all. And Fencer are introducing these regulations to make more money. Again, we're really not. We were very active in trying to discourage government from taking this course of action. However, we're here to allow installers to self-certify work, to make life easier, and it's a building regulation. And from all of our discussions with government, this is what they want. They want background ventilation to be installed into windows or installed into properties. So yeah, this is where we are, but we didn't want this, and yeah, we've got to deal with the fallout for it. So. Okay, so first of all, I wanted to put a bit of a definition in about background ventilation. So on my last webinar I did a week or so ago, I actually got asked the question, what is a trickle vent? Now, I don't think that person was trolling me, but they may have been. So a background vent, basically, it's a small vent that's designed to provide controllable whole dwelling ventilation. Okay, so you're supposed to be able to close it, and it's a secure opening to provide ventilation. That's all it is. So I've got a couple of pictures of it, the vent covers, and you know, there's a through shot of a vent. There are plenty of manufacturers out there, not just that one. There are plenty around that are delivering these vent covers. The equivalent area. Okay, so some people asked, they don't understand the sizing. And the sizing is purely the size of the openings, but in equivalent area. Equivalent area is the calculation of the amount of air that can actually pass through the product. So before, years ago, we used to have free air, and it was basically the size of the opening that was routed into the window, less baffles and bits and pieces. Now they calculate it as how much air will actually pass through everything. So that's why it's called equivalent area. So when we're looking for 8,000 mil, I'll get onto the size in a minute. That's the size of the ventilator. It's nothing to do with the size of the room. The size of the room does not come into background ventilation. It's the type of room. So you don't have to worry about, oh, I've got to calculate the size to work out how much trickle vent I need to get in. That's not the case. You just need to put in the right amount for the room. Okay. In most cases, background vent is provided by a trickle vent installed into a window. The reason behind that is it's easy. It's, you know, it's PVC or aluminium or timber. It's quite narrow. It's not like going through brick and block. We're an easy target. It can be through wall ventilation, but it still needs to meet some minimum criteria. It needs to be above 1700 millimeters from the floor. It needs to be the right size for the room. It needs to be controllable, and it needs to have the size marked onto the vents. Now, if you can see on this picture here, but the size of the vent is actually put on it, 8,000 or 4,000 or 2,000 EA, whatever it needs to be, and that's part of the regs. It needs to be marked on the vent. Okay, moving on. Right, so get to the meat of it. Assessing background ventilation when installing replacement windows and doors where they've already got trickle vents in. Okay, so the rules are the same as they've always been. If it had trickle vents before, then they need to go back, and you can put them back at the same size that you're taking out. Okay. That's the easy part. Okay, so if you're taking windows out with a 2,000 mil vent in the lounge, you can put a 2,000 mil back. Absolutely fine. You don't need to bring it up to the current regulations. You just have to put in what was there beforehand. I'd recommend if you've got small size vents in a window that you're changing, that you take photographs of it, put in your survey notes, because if we turn up and we see tiny little vents and think, well, you could have got a lot more in there, we might flag it up and ask you for proof. So if you take a photo and go, there you go, that was what was there beforehand. Be absolutely fine. So if you can't tell what size was in there beforehand, so you can you ripped them out, you didn't know what they were, then you install to the following sizes, which is the new regs, which is habitable rooms, and that is dining rooms, lounges, studies, bedrooms, that kind of room, anywhere you're going to spend time. You need to put a minimum 8,000 millimeter equivalent area in. In the kitchen, you need to put 8,000 millimeter minimum area in, equivalent area. And in bathrooms, with or without a toilet, you have to put in 4,000 mil equivalent area. Okay. There are some exceptions. There are some other bits and pieces. We'll go through that in a moment. But this is existing. When you're replacing windows where there is not existing background ventilation, so you're going in, there's no vents already, but you have to bring it up to this regulation. Okay, you need to install to the following sizes, same as what I've been through before. Habitable rooms, so bedrooms, lounges, dining rooms, studies, media rooms, all that kind of thing, 8,000 mil equivalent area. Kitchens, minimum 8,000 mil equivalent area. And bathrooms, with or without a toilet, minimum 4,000 millimeters equivalent area. Okay, so 8,000s and 4,000s. However, there is an area what's called feasible. If it has to be, if you can't feasibly get 8,000 millimeters of vent into a window, then you have to put in as much as you can. Okay, so the example we give quite a lot is bedroom window, 1200 wide split. Okay, single opening, so 600 break, and your vents go in the sash. You're not going to get 8,000 mil into that sash. It's not going to happen. You'll get 4,000 in, probably. That's fine. That's what you can feasibly put in. We are not going to turn up and go, well, you could have put a head box on, or you're going to put a packer in the head and on the head and put it into the frame or down those lines. We're not doing that. You can put in as much as you can, as you normally would, not asking for manufacturing process changes and that. Some people do put them in the heads of their frames. That's fine. If you do that, carry on. You'll be able to get quite a lot in, but we're not asking you to undermine the structural integrity of the frame, which putting them in head can sometimes do. Yeah, so if you put them in sashes, put them in sashes, that's fine. If you have two sashes next to each other, then you can put 8,000 in because you'll be able to get 2 to 4,000 into that kind of window. But yeah, it's we're not asking you to go and radically change the design of everything. Yeah. There are some alternatives. Okay, so this is one. If a mechanical ventilation with heat recovery system is installed into the property, then background vents should not be installed. They don't work. If you've got one of these systems in a house, then background vents, the whole system will just fall over. It doesn't work. The problem with these systems is the size of it. If you look at that one, that's in a loft space. I've seen huge units in cupboards in some houses. We're talking really modern housing that usually have these things put in. They are becoming more mainstream, but we're not going to see them in a replacement window world for quite some years, really, in any kind of volume. So you can, if you don't want juggle vents, you can put one of these in, but all that ducting work that has to be done, and yeah, where you're going to fit it. And if you put it in a loft, you've got boards towards it as well, so someone can maintain it because they have filters in them. It's an option. If you come across houses with these in, yeah, don't put vents in because you've got that system in place. If you've got continuous mechanical extract ventilation present in wet rooms, okay, so you know the type of vent that when you go into a bathroom, it's constantly running, and yeah, flick the switch on and it will suddenly kick in, and it'll double up in speed, and you turn the light off and it'll die back. That's continuous mechanical ventilation. They've normally got an override switch next to the door, but they're designed to be left on continuously. If you have those in your wet rooms, so bathrooms, toilets, etc., then you only need to put ventilators up to 4,000 mil in all the other rooms. You don't need to put any in the wet rooms. Wet rooms have been taken care of by that, and you don't need to put any more than 4,000 in the other rooms. You'll see these will be around. They're in modern houses now. They've been around for a while. So if you see those, only 4,000 in the other rooms, and nothing in the rooms with the continuous mechanical extract ventilation. Here I'll go over again. If it's not technically feasible to adopt them in other areas, then the background vents should have the equivalent areas as close to the value as possible. So that's what's in the building regs. And then the final bit, which isn't really much help to people if you're registering work through Fencer, but there's options. If you work in the following types of dwellings, you may not need to comply fully with the ventilation standards. Okay, so that's listed buildings in housing and conservation areas, and historic buildings with vapor permeable construction. And we're talking wattle and daub, we're talking lime render, we're talking lime pointing, those kind of things. Buildings that can breathe. But if you're going to go down that route, you're going to have to talk to the local authority to get permission. So, for example, some buildings in conservation areas won't let you have vents in at all. Some will want them in the back, but not in the front because you can't see them. It's all depending on the local authority. So unfortunately, it's not much help from a competent person scheme point of view, but there are options there which you get into. There's loads of cottages in Devon and Cornwall that will be made out of wattle and daub, or will have lime render or lime plaster, lime render or lime pointing. Sorry. A lot of places, the pointing's been changed and now it's Portland cement, and that's half the problems with the damp in the property. They repoint them with Portland cement, and the damp can't get through the building. It can't breathe anymore. So that's why they get damp. And a ventilation issue. It's it is, but not in the terms we're talking about. Okay, so I'm going to move on to some frequently asked questions, which over the past few weeks and months we've been asked a lot, and this will clear up most things, I think. First of all, are trickle vents mandatory? No, they're not. Not all windows need them. The ventilation requirement is based on the room. It's not based on anything else, it's based on the room. Okay, so you need to put an amount of vent in per room. So if you had 4 windows in a lounge, you wouldn't need to put a vent in every single window unless you're putting 2,000s in. But you could, if you're going to have multiple windows in a room, if you have multiple windows in a room, try and get into cross flow, but you don't need to put them in every single window. You don't need to put them in halls, stairways, landing. Utility room isn't even mentioned in the regs. It's mentioned in the new build, but it's not mentioned in the replacement world. So not every window needs to have a vent fitted. It's the room that needs the vents. So yeah. Do I have to fit vents? No, as I've been through before. There you can have MVHR through wall ventilation. You could go down other options, but in most cases, fitting vents is the simplest solution. Can I fit air bricks instead? You can, however, they must meet all the requirements of ADF, such as the correct equivalent area for the room, be controllable, and be above 1700 mil from floor level. Okay, so there's a lot of hoops to jump through there. They're not easy things to fit. They are on the market, but you got to go up in the air, you got to get them controlled. Yeah, they're not the easiest things in the world, but you can use them. Here's the big one. When does this come into force? As of the 15th of June. Anything fitted after the 15th of June must meet the new regs. There is no transition period. We begged for one, we didn't get it. So anything from the 15th of June, no matter when the contract was signed, has to be fitted to the new standards. You can't fit it. You can't turn around and say, well, the contract was signed in 2021. There's a lot of that about. I know of companies that have got work booked into 2024, and they're going to have to revisit this with their customers. It's not ideal, but it's been made very clear to us that anything post 15th of June needs to work under these regulations. Fit all these regulations. Okay. Is there a transition period? Nope. Department of Levelling Up Housing and Communities, who are in charge of building regs, said no transition period, absolutely nothing. And that's on ADL as well. There is no transition period for us. Is the night latch stroke two-stage lock acceptable as a background vent? No. There are security issues with it. There are risks of drafts, that you can't measure the equivalent area. Night latch was actually removed from the previous iteration of approved document F, and it's been tightened up in this version. So night vents are not acceptable. There was an argument that night vents that are in upstairs windows that are not accessible could be used. However, there's studies that have said that any windows upstairs that are open to night vent, even when there's downstairs windows are locked, makes the house more susceptible. So the government have made it clear yet again that night vent two-stage locking handles are not acceptable as a background ventilator. I read it that if you make it no worse, then you don't need vents. If I replace PVC with PVC, I'm not making it any worse. So do I need to fit vents? Yeah. What you need to read on that part of the document is that you need to be able to prove that. You can't just say, well, I've made it no worse. Prove it. The only proof that is acceptable to the department is proof of an air pressure test beforehand and afterwards. And in all reality, we can't really see many people doing that because it's not a guarantee either, you know. So yeah, if you can go to the expense and time and effort of doing an air pressure test before your installation and then after, and then can prove that there has been no change to the air infiltration, and at this point, it's not lowered the air infiltration, so it's not made it more airtight, then yeah, you don't need the vents. But yeah, it's an air pressure test before and after. It's not an easy thing to do. Not in an existing building anyway, currently. My customer really does not want trickle vents. Can they sign a disclaimer? No, disclaimers are not acceptable. Again, that we've had a memo out from the department saying that disclaimer is not acceptable. They must meet the requirements of the building regs. There is no way to opt out of it. You can't get your customer saying, oh, I don't want them. There's no opt out of the building regs straight. So that's that. I can't get 8,000 square mil equivalent area into the window. What do I do? So you install a vent as close as possible to the required size. Just get it in as much as you can. So if we come along and see that you've got one in a sash and it's as big as you're going to get in there, absolutely fine. If we come along and we find a tiddler in a a 600 break or a big top hole or something like that, then yeah, we'll be asking questions. That's not the biggest one you can get in there. So you can get as much as you can in up to the sides. Do these regulations apply in Scotland or Wales? No, these are only applicable to England. So Wales is going to be announcing their updated ADF soon. That's coming out soon. Scotland has had trickle vents in replacement windows for years. This has been something for years. It's not applicable, as far as I'm aware, in Northern Ireland or in the Channel Islands. So we have some fencing companies in Jersey, and there are, as far as we're aware, no requirements for trickle vents over there just yet. Jersey normally follows the English regs years down the line, so it's probably not coming anytime soon. So yeah, these are just applicable to England currently, nowhere else. This is an interesting one. So this is going to take some explaining. So there is a part of it, around about 30%. A lot of people have latched onto it. 30% of the windows. If you're only fitting 30% of the windows, you don't just put vents in, and that's not entirely true. So in the vast majority of cases, you're still going to have to fit vents, and I mean the absolute vast majority of cases. So any energy efficient measures that are fitted in a house since it was built will have reduced the air infiltration. Okay, so when we're talking about measures, they're categorized. There are minor measures, and that's cavity wall insulation, loft insulation, a loft conversion, less than 50% wall, external wall insulation, changing a loft hatch, and replacing less than 30% of the windows is classed as a minor measure. A major measure is more than 50% of the external wall insulation, more than 30% of the windows, removing or sealing a chimney, or insulating or sealing a suspended floor. Okay, so if since the house has been built, 2 minors or 1 single major has happened, or is being completed in the future, and that's what it actually says planned, then background vents must be installed. You see, this document doesn't just affect us, it affects lots of other industries in the end that are putting energy efficient measures in. So if there are existing windows in that house, and it's very rare for me to see replacement original windows being taken out of houses these days. It's normally second generation windows, sometimes third, are coming out and being replaced again. Then that's when your energy efficient measures gone. If it's more than 30% lead, that's a major, absolutely. If it's had loft insulation fitted, if it's had cavity wall, if it's had any of that kind of stuff since it was built, that all counts as a measure, and therefore 2 minors need vents, 1 major need vents. Category C, you need an expert on hand to work out exactly what you're going to do with it. So you can see this is the table. 0, 1, or 2 number of minor measures is a category A, and not reduced infiltration, so no vents needed. So if you go to a house that has never been touched since it was built, and it's got no energy efficient measures, so no cavity wall insulation, no loft insulation, no replacement windows, nothing, then yeah, in those rare cases, and you're only changing 30% of the windows or less, then you're not going to need to put vents in. But I don't know many houses that you're going to come across that are like that. Also, if you come across to that house and it is in that state, the chances are it's being done up, and lots of other measures are going to be fitted at some point, probably around what you're doing. So they're going to be insulated and other areas. So you need to put vents in. We've been in contact with the external wall industry, wall insulation industry. They've come to us asking for people who can fit trickle vents into existing windows, because they're putting external wall up, and therefore they need to put vents in because they're taking away a lot of air infiltration by putting the external wall up. Yeah, nobody wants to do that. It's bad enough retrofitting trickle vents into your own windows and your own system that you know what you're doing, but trying to put trickle vents into windows and doors that you don't know. You don't know where you're going to be drilling through. You don't know if there's going to be any reinforcement behind it. Nobody wants to do that. It's a nightmarish job, as you probably all understand. We've all had to do something like that in the past. It's not easy. So I hope that's explained the 30% rule or lack of it. Basically, there's no way of doing it in 3 separate contracts and a bit. It doesn't work because as soon as you do water status at the windows, it becomes a major, and then they all need to have vents. Yeah, it's not one that works. Which leads me on to this one. Can I fit a job in 3 parts, register invoice separately to take advantage of the 30% rule? No, you can't, because as soon as you go over 30%, it is not a minor anymore, it is a major, and everything will need vents in the house. So yeah, it is not an option. Are you expecting us to put a trickle vent in the head and sash to achieve the minimum compliance? No, that's not what we class as feasible. So if you turned up and you look at it, you go, oh, the only way I'm going to get the 8,000 mil is to put one in there and one right up there and move them around. And it's no, just got whatever you can feasibly put into the sashes or the head, wherever you put them. But yeah, we're not going to ask you to start making Frankenstein's window with vents absolutely everywhere. Do I have to fit in a vent in a front door, stroke back door, stroke French door? Okay, it comes back to the room. So if the room is a hallway, so if it's a front door being fitted into a hallway, no, doesn't need it. It's a hallway, doesn't need any vent. If it's a kitchen, a lone kitchen door, and there's no other windows, or yeah, could argue that it needs it in there. Mostly the vent's going to go into the window. Interestingly, that the only time I think we're going to see vents really have to go in the doors is when you've got a set of French doors or a bifold or something like in a lounge, and there are no other windows. Okay, and therefore you're changing those, and you need to put vents back into those to make it compliant. You have to put them in when you install them. It happens quite a lot in modern houses now that you'll go in and there'll be a lounge diner at the back of the house, and the only way into the garden is a set of French doors, and there's no other windows. There's definitely a load of those around where I live, and they have vents fitted in them already because most of these are new build or fairly new build properties. So yeah, it's all dependent on the room. If the room is a habitable room and you're changing the products in that room, you need to put vents into those products. But if it's a non-habitable room, hallway, utility room, bits of like you're fine. Okay, moving on. What if my trade supply only has 2,500 TVs and is not tooled up for a 4,000? You need to get the right one installed. At Fit Show last week, I came across some companies where they could only fit 2,500 into the window. It was the only way of fitting them into, I think it was a vertical slider, and they could only get 2,500 in. And that's fine. If that's all you can get in, that's all that's feasible, fine. But if you can feasibly get a 4,000 in there, and you're only putting 2,500 and there's loads of space, then we will ask for it to be amended. One thing that I've spoken to a few people, especially in fabrication, and they've said, yeah, it's going to be a lot easier to put the vents in at fabrication stage than to have to go back, take the sashes out, drill them, and put them back in again. So much easier. Seconds in a factory, absolute nightmare to do it on site. I've been there, I've done that. It's not fun at all. Said earlier, even when you know your system. So yeah. Is there a grace period for contracts signed before ADF goes live? Nope, there is no grace period. Anything fitted, anything signed before the 15th of June, it's all down to installation date. It doesn't matter when you sign the contract. Anything fitted from the 15th of June onwards must be to the new regs. We've talked to government about the materials issues that we've had and how it's been really difficult to get. Some stuff has been stuck in pipelines. Trickle vent covers themselves, if they're coming in from abroad, we're finding that some containers are getting stuck and they're not even here yet, and we're a month away now. No, they're not budging on it. There's no transition period. Anything fitted from the 15th of June onwards needs to have its ventilation up to the regulation standard. Okay, what do I do if the homeowner refuses to have trickle vents installed? Installations that don't meet the requirements, they'll fail when they're inspected. If they still don't allow them to be fitted afterwards, then we're not an enforcement agency, we're a certification body. We're here to try and help installers on their journey through building regulations. We inspect 1 in 100. We don't, we try and make life easier that way. You're self-certifying the work. LABC are an enforcement agency. So if the homeowner won't allow vents to be installed, then they'll be passed off over to the local authority, and local authority can take the appropriate enforcement action. It's up to them if they do that or not. But if the customer doesn't want them, they need to be installed. It's a building regulation. It's part of building. And I understand and I empathise, but it's what they want. So they need to go in or find an alternative measure, air bricks, heat recovery, something along those lines. Is an indemnity policy the same as a fence certificate? Nope, not at all. An indemnity policy covers costs and losses should a local authority take enforcement action against the owner, as the new owner, because indemnity policies don't really kick in when they're selling houses. They're only valid on installations that are over a year old. So if they have an indemnity policy and the job was put in less than a year, it's not valid, doesn't protect them. It doesn't cover against actual defects if LABC knows. So if they got a failed job, doesn't work again. They don't protect anybody because you're trying to put an insurance policy on something you know has already failed. It's like trying to insure your car after you've had an accident. It doesn't work. They're not the same as a fence certificate or a building control certificate because they're used across all areas of building control. No, not ideal. Okay, this is an interesting one. The house is next to a busy road and there is a lot of pollution, traffic pollution. Do I have to fit vents here? Actually, no. If the house is next to a busy urban road where pollution levels are high, traffic pollution levels are high, the vent should be installed on the other side of the building, not side of the building facing the road. Okay. Unfortunately, there is no definition of what constitutes a busy urban road. They haven't put that in the document. They've literally just put busy urban road where traffic pollution is high. It's open to interpretation. When I think about these type of roads, I'm thinking about, although I live down in Devon, probably things like the A1, the A4, A6 running through London, which are pretty much motorways that run right down the end of people's gardens, front gardens. And if you look at those houses as you drive down those roads, if any of you have, you'll see the road muck that is all over them. So those are the type of roads where we believe is intended for roads with high levels of pollution. So if you have that, you still need to put the vents on the back because we all know pollution doesn't go up and over and back in, but you don't have to put the vents on the outside. But please, if you can do any of this, put it in your survey notes in advance when you're surveying the job. So it's noted all the way through. Take some photos. I mean, if we inspect and we turn up and we find it's a lovely little country lane that runs through the middle of some village down here in Devon, then I'm not going to go for it's a polluted urban road. But there's no binary switch for it. I think it's a gradual thing. An example I give, I don't know if there's anyone here from the southwest, but Launceston, if you take the 388 through Launceston, where it queues down to the traffic lights, I would be putting vents on the front of those houses. If you ever go into any of those, you'd have to scrape the muck off the front. It's where cars are sitting and just pumping it out permanently. So it's down to you, your interpretation. So you've just got to be sensible about it. I have a property near to a railway line, a main road, an airport. It's noisy. Do I need vents? Yes, you do. It's actually in the regs that if noise is a problem, then you need to use noise attenuating ventilators, acoustic vents. They are big, they are ugly, they are expensive. But the document says that if sound's your problem, that's what you need to do. You need to put these things in. I don't know if you've ever seen them. They're quite deep and they have baffles in them, and they do work to a point. Many years ago, I did a load of work under the flight path of Heathrow, and when everything was glazed and the covers were off, every 40 seconds you had to stop talking. As soon as you put the vent covers on, you could talk. You could still hear them, but at least it dulled the sound down to that point. I'm not an advocate for them. another trickle vent. But yeah, the building regs say that if noise is a problem, noise attenuating vents should be installed. Okay, right, that is it. I see Lee has answered some questions for us over on the Q&A. I'm going to quickly open up the chat and see if there's anything in there. So excuse me for a moment, and if there's anything I can answer in there. I think Lee has answered most of the items in there. Okay, so the recording's going to be available for everybody. Lucky everybody. Can you confirm if landing hallway windows are similar and required to meet regs? No, they don't. Yeah, hallway landing windows do not need to have trickle vents installed. They meet the regulations without them. I have a question regarding shape window, which is impossible to fit a trickle vent because it's arched or circular. Yeah, nope, don't need to put trickle vents in that. It's not feasible. If you can't put it in, it's not feasible. Don't have to put it in. If it's an arch, although if it's an arch and it's got sashes further down, then yeah, you can put them in the sashes. But if you've got a circular window, yeah, there isn't a circular vent yet. I don't think there's really much call for it. Just reading through. Our fabricator offers 2,500 EA and 5,000. Will fit as the 501. What happens in this scenario? They offered 4,000 vents, put two 4,000s on, but not options available. Plans to change their offering. Okay, so yeah, I mean, get in what you can. However, if we turn up and see that they're really small, then we might turn around and go, well, you could put more in there. Install more vents. Yeah, you need to have a word with your fabricator. If they can get 4,000s in, they should be putting the 4,000s in as much as they can. There's going to be some transition over at the moment, actually getting the vent covers to fit and to work, because there's loads of people out there that still haven't got their vent covers quite sorted yet. But yeah, you need to get as much in as you possibly can, so they need to be a bit careful with that one. Okay, we specialise in acoustic windows and doors of property sufferers. Yeah, acoustic windows. I've just said acoustic vents would be your only solution. Unfortunately, it's in there. They have noted it directly. No windows, just door, a French door, bifold, just window. Yep, I've already answered that one. Yeah, okay. Garden rooms. No, they'll be classed as temporary buildings. So yeah, it's garden rooms don't come under it. There is an interesting one regarding conservatories, actually. So if you have a conservatory that is, if you install a conservatory that's over 30 square meters, then you need to put 10,000 mil of ventilation into that, trickle ventilation into that conservatory. And if you put that into the conservatory, then you have to put permanent ventilation between the house and the conservatory that is equal to 1/20th of both of the floor spaces. So the floor space of the conservatory and the floor space of the room that leads onto it. In effect, that means you have to take the doors out, which in effect means you're going to have to go through planning to put that conservatory on, because you are going to be changing it from a conservatory, because there will be no thermal separation. So yeah, that's a really weird one. We're not going to see many. I don't think you see many conservatories over 30 square meters that don't have planning already, but it could happen. On the flip side of that, if you have a set of doors that open into a conservatory and you're changing those doors, and those doors are the only thermal separation into them, so there's no windows in that room, it's just the doors that open the conservatory, you still need to put vents into those doors. It's best practice to put vents from the conservatory into the outside, but you don't have to. You only have to put the vents from the doors from the conservatory. Okay. Houses, building regs and UV towards traditional C windows can't be 1.4. Okay, so this is a approved document L question. Yeah, I'm not really prepped for approved document L. The only thing on doc L is the U values are dropping at 1.4 for windows and doors, and they're dropping to window energy ratings of B, or door set energy ratings of B or C, depending on how much glass is in them. Yeah, steel is really going to struggle. They're working on it. Some are getting there. It's going to be highly dependent on the glass that goes inside, and fitted into and installed into it. Yeah, it's going to be a struggle for steel and for I know aluminiums. Some of the aluminium systems have struggled a little bit as well. But yeah, I think we need to do a Docker webinar to explain that a little bit better at some point soon. Okay, do we need to install in highest point of frames or is sashes okay? Sashes are absolutely fine. Pop them in there. Yep, no problem. A window 1200 with a sash to fan light. Do you have to put two 4000s in? One sash and one fan light. Yeah, if you've got the ability to put it in, you need to put them in. If it's a side on next to a fix, one 4000 is fine. If it's a side on next to a top one, then yeah, you got to put them in. The noise attenuating background ventilators and reduced noise potentially to suggest levels are 2500. Would that be sufficient? Also, if there's house noise. So let's do that first of all. So yeah, if you can only get 2500 noise attenuating vents, that's all you can get in. That's fine. You've put in what's feasible. I mean, you've put acoustic vents in, and you've put in as much as you can. So that's going to be fine by us. That's what the regs say. Put as much as you can in what is feasibly possible, and you put in acoustic vents. That's good. Also, if the house is a terrace road and a very politically busy road, you don't have to access to a side of the house to install the air brake. How would you overcome this problem? So if it's a terraced house and it's on a very politically busy road, access to the side of the house, you get access to the back of the house. If it's on the front, then you just put the vents on the back. So yeah, that's the way you'd have to overcome it. Yeah, that's all I can suggest. It's a woolly part of the regulation, unfortunately. So that's that. I think. Oh no, there's some more popped up in the Q&A. Let's have a quick look in there. I've got about 3 minutes left before the session ends. Let's go through these. So what if windows are shaped? So you'll come up and worry if there's a triangular. I think the circular window one answered that. So yeah, if they're shaped, don't worry about it. If you can't get them in, you can't get them in. If they're triangular at the top, so if you've got a raked frame at the top and you've got openers below, you can put them in the openers. What about TVs, conservatories, and orangeries? Just been through that one again. That's fine. How about a small toilet window? Will this need ventilation? Yes, you need to get in as much as you possibly can. But we understand it's going to be a tiny little job. You can get tiny vents in tiny windows. I have a tiny toilet window and there's a vent about that big in it. Lots of sound issues with this. Oh, unfortunately, I'm sorry to hear that. Okay, yeah, it is being recorded and it's going to be put onto the website. So yeah, it'll be available on our portal afterwards. So yeah, it's going to be available. Hopefully, it will have recorded well and we won't have any problems with that. So it will be edited up and put out hopefully tomorrow, I think. Given the current climate, what happens if you have a job and order due to be installed before the 15th? It's held up due to supply chain and unable to fit. We have asked government this, and they just keep saying they need to be installed to building regs. I can see Lee's typing. That's pretty much what he's going to say. But yeah, if it's ordered before the 15th, but it's held up, yeah, government has said they need to be installed post 15th of June. Whether you're fitting slim section windows and the same surround set of windows, again, you put in what is feasible. Yeah, if you can't get them in, you can't get them in. So yes, you've got to put in what is feasible, but we're not going to start making people put all sorts of weird and wonderful ways of putting windows in. I think that's it. Thank you all for attending this. If you could give us any feedback, it would be helpful to develop it in the future. We've done this one at 6 o'clock because the one we did beforehand was I think at 2 o'clock, and a lot of people moaned that they were out still, so they did one in the evening. Yeah, it's glad for you all come along, and yeah, good luck for the future. Maybe I'll see some of you around. Thank you.